Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're giving everyone a few seconds to join from the waiting room. I see that people are joining from the waiting room. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our weekly webinar about the HEALEY ALS Platform Trial. This is Sabrina Paganoni, and I'm speaking from the HEALEY and AMG Center for ALS at Mass General in Boston, Mass. I'm here with Catherine Small, our patient navigator, who's always with me here on a weekly basis. And tonight, we're very, very excited to have a distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Michael Hayden from Prilenia. As you may remember, we included the drug made by Prilenia, Pridopidine, as one of the initial regimens of the platform trial, Regimen D. And now we have other collaborative projects. And so we're very excited to have Dr. Hayden here with us to tell us more about Pridopidine and to answer your questions. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Hayden.
Thank you, Sabrina. And just to say to everybody, I'm really so thrilled to join all of you. This journey has been wonderfully inspiring. I've been inspired by the courage of patients and physicians and people at the HEALEY Center who are also all committed to development of drugs that really can provide a better future for all of you. And our mission is to help people when they need it most, to help with progression, to help with various signs and symptoms of ALS. And I know each of you has witnessed the agony of watching time and illness transform the person that you know so well. So let me share with you why we're hopeful about Pridopidine and what that trial was about. So we were fortunate to be in the platform trial. And I'm going to share with you now some of the results from that study that we've been learning about. So the drug we're talking about is Pridopidine. This is an investigational drug, not only for ALS, but also for other neurodegenerative disorders. And this includes Huntington disease. It's given orally twice a day in a small capsule. And we know the target. It binds and activates the sigma-1 receptor. This particular receptor is an important target in the brain because when it's activated, it's neuroprotective. It reduces cellular stress and inflammation, gets rid of toxins, toxic proteins, enhances energy, increases the connectivity in the brain, and also releases numerous protective factors that act like a shield for ongoing neurodegeneration. Now, we already knew, even before the platform trial, that this gene may be important and this protein may be important in ALS. We knew this because there were patients who had sequence errors or spelling errors in the gene that actually develop ALS. And furthermore, if you have a spelling error that completely disrupts the gene, you got early onset ALS, or what we call juvenile ALS. And if you got a missense mutation, a spelling error that just caused partial loss of function, you got adult onset ALS. So we knew that already this gene potentially had important functions in motor neuron viability and integrity. We know that if you now activate sigma-1, you do a lot of important things in the cell around pathways that are disturbed in ALS. For example, you decrease stress in various parts of the cell. You improve ionic calcium homeostasis. Protective factors are secreted. You decrease neuroinflammation, and you have big impact on cellular respiration. That's so crucial for neuronal viability. We also knew that if you looked at animals that are diminished, that have true absence of sigma-1, and you look at animal models that have ALS, these are animals that have mutations in another gene, and these are animals that die here, you can see, between 226 days. If you cross them and you now have an animal that has the same mutation but absence for sigma-1, you die earlier. So there already was evidence 10 years ago that loss of this gene can cause further exaggeration of and loss of survival in animal models. There's other studies that also we showed in animal models that you can actually improve the contractility. So here you can see these are muscle cells, and these are muscle cells from animals with ALS. And here you can see in the ALS model, there's decreased function. And with Pridopidine, you see the function improving and actually getting close to what's seen in normal. All of this gave the platform scientific committee, as well as ourselves, really some a desire to test this in human studies. Also, sigma-1 is very highly expressed in the brainstem and spinal cord, as well as other regions in the brain. And that's also important, those regions that are important for neuronal viability. It's a safe drug. It's now been given to over 1,700 patients for almost a year in different indications, and it's safe and has a safety and tolerability profile comparable to placebo. And that's also very comforting to know that there's no obvious harm from the drug itself. When we look at the platform trial, without going into too much detail, you know it was a shared placebo trial, and we had 120 on Pridopidine, shared placebo across many arms, where there was just 42 in our arm, but shared across. And we looked at numerous measures, including the scales that measure progression, respiratory function, quality of life, and speech. And we looked in different subgroups, the whole group that we call the full analysis set, and then patients who were earlier in the disease. Now, important to note that this was a study that took in patients with quite advanced illness. You can see here that the mean duration of illness was in the 20 months, whereas many other studies that, and some of these drugs have now been approved, Amylyx and edaravone and tofersen, had mean duration that was a lot less. And so we also wanted to compare our outcome compared to these patients. And the reason is, if you look at patients with shorter duration who are fast progressors, there's an ability in a short study of 24 weeks to have a window to detect the effect of your drug. And so when we looked at this group that was really more fast progressors compared to the others, now we had baseline criteria that look quite similar. And I'm going to show you a lot of data that comes from this group, because this is helping us choose the trial population for our upcoming phase 3 trial. So here we see already in the full analysis set, we did not see any significant difference between placebo and the patients on the drug. This is Pridopidine here. With a p-value, you need to have a naught in here and preferably be 0.05 and less to really show any meaningful effect. Here you can see as you get to the patients with shorter duration, you start seeing a delta here between placebo and Pridopidine of 2.4. And if you go to the fast progressors, it goes up to 5.2 and reaches nominal significance. We say nominal because it failed in its primary relative to the full analysis set in the full population. When we compare this to Relyvrio and also to edaravone, we see the drug also is quite similar in the sense that it slows progression here just normally by 41%. Here, edaravone 33. These numbers are not really comparable because the studies were not exactly the same, but these are similar. And you can see also, importantly here, we see early changes in the fast progressors that really shows nominal significance even at 8 weeks. When we look and determine what in that signs of progression contributed most, it was mostly in the area of respiration, which is what we might expect from the neurons that are mostly innervated by sigma-1 in the brainstem and upper spinal cord. You can see in all patients, there was a difference, but this did not reach the number of significance. When we go to the definite and less than 18 months, remarkably, in the placebo, it goes down 1.29, In Pridopidine, there was very little increase in dyspnea, difficulty with dyspnea, and this became nominally significant. The other area that was important, and we already had some evidence from prior studies that this might be important for speech. And as you know, to talking, you need your lungs, you need your pharynx, your larynx, and your tongue. And even in the full analysis set here, we saw significance, nominal significance here with a difference with Pridopidine outperforming placebo in this particular study. When we went to the actual, and speech, of course, as you all know, is so crucial in terms of the ability to communicate, the quality of life, and speech measures are associated with other measures of severity in ALS. And here you can see, here we see, for example, in the definite, and this is looking at the articulation rate, how you articulate, speaking rate, how fast you speak. And here you can see when you look at the difference in the definite and less than 18-month folks, patients, and then you go to subjects who are more fast progressors, the difference becomes further exemplified and amplified in that particular group. Also, if you look at the quality of life, again, the quality of life in this early, definite, and less than 18 months was improved compared to placebo, even though the numbers are quite small. So this was also encouraging that there's improvement, and this was primarily due to improvement in communication and eating and drinking that, again, would be consistent with what we expected. When we looked at survival, and this is just recently come in, and OmniTrace, the folks at HEALEY were able to trace essentially the vast majority of deaths. What you can see in the double-blind part of the trial, there were no differences between placebo and Pridopidine, with 4 deaths in placebo and 3 in Pridopidine. And then everybody went on to Pridopidine. And what you can see, the blue line is what we call a delayed start for Pridopidine. These were patients who now were on Pridopidine, but didn't have it for the 6 months. And what you can see, this line is a little, this is all in the fast progressors. This line is below that in the red, which is Pridopidine all the way, which means there are less people surviving over time. One of the elements that you look at for survival is when the number 50% of patients survived at that time. And here you can see in this blue group, it was at 300 days. At the same time, 85% of patients who were fast progressors like this had survived. So this was, again, a difference. The question became, when do you get survival that can be compared? 50% survival in that group. And when you get to this is at about 600 days. So you see about a 10 months increase in survival here associated with this. Now, we were thrilled to be part of the, invited by Merit Psychovitz and also Sabrina to participate in the ACT for ALS grant. Because of these promising findings, it also was thought that it would be really wonderful to provide expanded access to patients with Pridopidine who would not be in our phase 3 clinical trial, greater than 24 months duration, and to monitor those. And we're really thrilled to say that this was awarded to the HEALEY Center, who are now will be enrolling patients in the essentially the expanded access study that is about to begin and directed by Mass General in collaboration with us. So if we were to summarize this, our analysis in early patients showed significant benefits in progression, respiratory, bulbar, quality of life, and particularly we see impact on speech. And then survival at the moment, there's some positive trends that give us some hope and optimism for the future. There are no safety signals, and that's important. And these observations are now going to inform our planned phase 3 study. We still don't have the exact date when this would start, but we are going to look at patients who are early, in other words, less than 18 months, or it could be up to 24 months. We're looking at patients with definite and probable, and we're using similar assessments that have been used before, where we already saw some promise in this particular population. The ALS-FRS, this is the primary endpoint for progression, speech, quality of life, and of course, survival. And we are thinking that the study may go now 12 months in an effort to really further amplify and see the effects of the drug. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity of sharing with you. You know, this is an amazing community, and you have all essentially grabbed my heart in terms of what we can do to try and help you. And the way I think is, how is a community working? What is a community? A community is defined how people come together to meet difficulties, and both from the patient communities, the organizations, the Healey Center, this is a profoundly significant and inspiring community. Thank you for allowing us to be part of it.
Thank you. This was a fantastic overview of your progress so far, and obviously we're thrilled that you want to continue to be in this space. So there's a few questions about the results that you showed. Can you let us know if the participants in the trial, the ones who were taking Pridopidine, were they also taking edaravone or riluzole?
Yes. So what we do know that about 75% of patients were taking riluzole, and about 25% of patients were taking edaravone.
Right. So there's a clarification.
And the reason for that, and we really support the Healey Center as well as the FDA, that you have to allow the standard of care, whatever is out there, because this has to show some improvement above the standard of care, and it would be not ethical to allow people to have to come off drugs that may already providing some benefit.
Yeah, there's a question, again, a clarification question about the results that you showed. You showed a beneficial impact on functions such as speech and swallowing. And so the question is, did you see slowing of progression on those domains, or was there actually recovery of lost function?
No, there was progression, but there was much slower progression in the treated group than Pridopidine, so than the placebo group. So we did not see recovery, but we saw slower progression, slower impairment of function.
So there's another question for clarification. So you mentioned that people will be able to join the phase 3 trial will need to be within 18 months from symptom onset. And can you explain why?
Well, the reason is that we're also looking at patients, and we are still defining those patients who have fast progression. So the point is that if we want to look at the effect of the drug, there are, as everybody knows, there are some people with ALS that have very slow progression, and they may be going already 2-3 years with mild progression over time. Those patients may benefit from this drug, but it's very hard to see that in a limited time. So we're looking at those patients who have faster progression, so that when they progress, we can actually see whether there's an effect of our medication, our intervention on them, in an effort to be able to have a window to see the effect. And so that is why, for example, as we learn this, because when we looked in the full analysis set of patients who were in the platform trial, we did not see really any significant benefit with Pridopidine. But when we went to these fast progressors, we started seeing evidence that this really drug was having an effect. So we want to target those patients who give us the best chance to detect the effect of the intervention. On the other hand, patients who are more than 24 months will be able to participate in the expanded access program that's going to be run through Healey. And Sabrina, you may want to talk about that.
Absolutely.
That starts. And so there'll be two groups of patients, one who are eligible for the trial and others who are going to be eligible for the expanded access. So these patients and subjects will also be able to participate in expanded access while we learn more in a proper, rigorous phase 3 clinical trial.
I agree. And again, we're working collaboratively to find options for different people depending on their specific situation. The trial could be right for some people and the expanded access for others. And I apologize, we are having a very high volume of questions, so we'll try to take them all in rapid fire. So question, there was a comment actually more about whether you're interested in looking at the effects, synergistic effect potentially of pridopidine plus riluzole or pridopidine plus other compounds.
Yes, that's such an important point. And we're still busy going through that analysis, whether pridopidine would act additively or synergistic with some of the other medications like edaravone or radicava and riluzole. Those analyses are ongoing. There were small numbers in the study, so we don't have a big effect, but at least we could see trends. Those analyses have not yet been completed.
Right. And along the same lines, there is a question about, how do you know that the results were due to pridopidine, for example, and not to another drug like Relivrio or Riluzole?
Great question. Firstly, Relivrio was not yet approved, so there were no patients on Relivrio in this trial. Secondly, there was a balanced randomization. There were equal numbers, not exactly equal, but equivalent numbers in the placebo group and in the treatment group, and we saw a difference in the treatment group. So this is unlikely to be due to the other medications.
Yeah. There's a question about another drug, Nuedexta. Can you discuss the difference between Nuedexta and pridopidine?
Great question. There is a difference. Nuedexta is a much less potent sigma-1 agonist, and in compared to pridopidine, it has other targets. Pridopidine is very monogamous and acts on a single target at this dose called the sigma-1 receptor, whereas Nuedexta touches many other targets in the brain and also acts on sigma-1 with less potency. So Nuedexta is important. It's important for pseudobulbar, other features of ALS, but it has a much reduced effect on the sigma-1, but certainly may be useful in other indications in ALS.
So there's one participant in this webinar said that he has had ALS for at least 5 years. And so do you have results in this group of patients who have had the disease for long?
No, because the maximum duration in the platform trial was less than 3 years. So we don't know, but this is where the expanded access program will really give us information. That's why it's so important. And we're so thrilled because these are people who have more than 24 months duration. They're going to be followed for 2 years at least. We will be able to see their overall progression. We know in ALS is inevitably and sadly progressive. If we see some stability against numerous measures, that would be further support of the effect of the drug, and we will learn that.
Yeah. Did you see any effects on respiration, vital capacity, for example?
There was a trend to improvement in vital capacity, but that was not significant.
Yeah.
We saw an impact on dyspnea, which is a part of that, but the vital capacity just not a significant improvement.
So there's someone who participated in Regimen D and doesn't know at this point whether he was on placebo or pridopidine for the first 6 months for the placebo control trial. And the comment is that he would really like to know. And I'm happy to comment on this, but if you want to go first.
Well, I can understand, and we would all like to know, and I know that my colleagues and friends at HEALEY are close to making the decision as to when to disclose this. But Sabrina, you may want to comment.
Yes, so definitely we are committed to sharing the information with each participant in the platform trial. We do need to close out an individual regimen in order to be able to do so. Everything needs to be completed, including all the data collection and all the analysis. So we have actually already shared the treatment results for regimens A, B, and C, because those studies have been completely closed out. For Regimen D or the Pridopidine regimen, at this time, we still have people in the open label extension, and so we will be able to share those assignments when, in the future when the open label extension is closed. So as soon as, all those activities are finished, we will do that and we'll communicate the timelines. So question about other outcomes. Did you see any effect on mobility?
I don't think there was an obvious muscle strength was not a big change, so not so much on muscle strength. And when we say mobility, I'm not sure how that was measured in the study. Sabrina, do you want to comment?
So that would be the motor score of one of the questions in the ALS FRSR, which is a functional rating scale. And again, obviously we looked at a variety of outcomes. I think the ones that stood out the most are the ones that you described.
Yeah. So there was
yeah.
numerical improvements, but none of them were significant. Again, this is just a phase 2 trial that gives us a choice of the right population. It's now going to be powered at greater numbers, and also this will be placebo, a direct placebo group. The numbers will be longer. The duration will probably be longer than 24 weeks, and we'll be able to get a better index of other features that we just didn't have the power, and we didn't have obvious differences at this stage.
Right. There's a few questions that I'm gonna lump together in terms of, people are asking if you participate in a different expanded access, can you also participate in the Pridopidine expanded access at the same time? And the answer is no, actually, because these are still investigational products. So we're really trying to evaluate them one by one, and sort of along the same lines. If somebody is participating, for example, in a different regimen or the platform trial, that person would not be able to participate at the same time in the phase 3 trial of Pridopidine that you are setting up. However, people can do things sequentially. In fact, we have had several people move from one program to another program at the completion of the program of each one. So somebody could, for example, participate in a trial, complete that, and then move on to the phase 3 trial of Pridopidine. So just wanted to point it out.
Yes, and we'd welcome people who've been in other trials, but you had to have a sufficient time to have a washout from that trial in an effort to enter this trial. Yes.
Right. And also the same goes in terms of people moving from sort of a randomized trial to an expanded access. So, people are asking about that specific situation in the chat. And so I would defer you to your study team because depending on the clinical characteristics, somebody may or may not be eligible for the expanded access. So again, please connect with your treating physician to learn more about that, specifically your eligibility for other trials or for the expanded access. So there's a question about your preclinical science. There is a question about somebody's asking in one of the recent studies, Pridopidine didn't show an effect on the survival of animals, I believe ALS models. And so can you let us know more about the expected impact on survival?
Yeah, that is true. When we looked at survival, both in the SOD1 mice and also another group independently has showed significant benefits in terms of, by the way, motor function, motor contractility, a whole set of, but survival was not improved in these animals. These animals are very severe. These are SOD1 animals with a very severe form of ALS. And it's unclear why we did not see that, but it just looked like in these animals, the ALS and the mutation really overcame the effects of Pridopidine. You saw the effects, but survival was not mediated, and we don't fully understand why there was no change in survival.
Yes. So there's a few questions about eligibility into the expanded access and locations, etc. So I'm happy to take those. So the expanded access is being set up right now. We are doing all the startup activities right now. We have a website where we provide periodic updates. Clinicaltrials.gov also provides updates. I also would encourage you to join us for our monthly EAP series. So same place, same time, on Thursday nights, once a month, we talk about EAP updates, and we have previous webinars that have been recorded. Last week, I believe we had the NIH, and it was a wonderful overview of expanded access. So I would encourage you to continue to come to these, especially the second week of each month. We will provide updates. The expanded access will be available to up to 200 people living with ALS. Each individual will have access to Pridopidine for up to 2 years. We are going to be opening these at 45 sites over the next few weeks and months in the US. There are no European sites at this point. I see a question about that. It's in the US right now because this is funded by the National Institutes of Health as part of Act for ALS. And people who participate in the Pridopidine EAP, again, it's a different population compared to people who are eligible, for example, for the upcoming phase 3 trial of Pridopidine. And there are some drug-drug interactions or restrictions based on safety or other considerations. So we will, again, share all of these in the other webinars. And then obviously we can talk individually about sort of whether specific supplements or other things may or may not be exclusionary. It depends on the exact compound that we're talking about. And then question for you, Dr. Hayden. Can you please give us some thoughts in terms of muscle mass versus muscle strength? Is Pridopidine affecting one or the other?
Well, just let's we did not measure muscle bulk in this, so muscle mass, but body weight, which is a reflection to a significant extent of muscle mass, and body weight was improved in the Pridopidine compared to placebo. Didn't quite reach significance, but very interesting in the animal models. It was also seen, and also these patients weren't completely balanced at baseline. The Pridopidine group had less body weight, yet the body weight was preserved more in the Pridopidine group than in the placebo group. And this also suggests that there may have been improvement in muscle mass, and it is something with that we want to go and take into our phase 3 study to understand whether muscle mass is actually preserved in this with this particular intervention. The quality of life was improved in general, particularly in those who had faster progression.
Yes, and I see a couple of other questions in terms of sharing the links to the webinars. I see that Catherine has posted them. And as always, you can find everything freely available on our website. And again, the second Thursday of every month, we will talk about expanded access. We started this series in late 2023, and I'm sure we'll do one specifically on Pridopidine. And so we can invite you back, Dr. Hayden, to talk about that specifically for Pridopidine. People can wash out from other studies. Generally speaking, it's a 30-day washout. Sometimes, depending on the specific drug, it may be a little bit longer, but normally it's only a month. So, so with that, I think we took all of the questions related to Pridopidine, and obviously we will continue to meet here on a weekly basis to talk about different topics. We have updates from other regimens coming up over the next few weeks, and all the schedule is available on our website. Dr. Hayden, any final comments or anything you would like to share with the audience today?
No, just to say, I'm born in South Africa, and I'm always keep some of Nelson Mandela's words close to me. And what he always used to say, it always seems impossible until it's done. We're going to do a phase 3 trial to see if we can make the impossible possible, and look forward to working with this community in a profoundly collaborative and collegial manner in an effort to answer that question together. So thank you all.
Thank you. I cannot add much to that. Really wonderful way to end the webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.